In rolling back Biden-era attempts to let DEI drive hiring in federal government, President Trump made clear that he wants to see hiring based upon merit. His administration is working quickly to do just that and move away all remnants of DEI. On Monday, the new acting head of the Department of Homeland Security fired the Coast Guard Commandant, Admiral Linda Fagan, reportedly due to her excessive focus on DEI initiatives, which hindered the actual mission of the Coast Guard. Will we soon see a turnaround in our military as the Trump administration continues to shake things up? Joining me now to discuss this and more is Vice Admiral William Dean Lee, who retired from service in the Coast Guard in 2016 after 35 years of distinguished service. Admiral Lee, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you again, Tony.
Let me ask you a question. Were you concerned about the kind of the DEI policies that were moving into the Coast Guard and affecting the agency's focus on its mission?
Well, the short answer is yes. Yes, I was. But I belong to an organization of like-minded generals, admirals, retired JAG officers, and colonels that called stars.us, who has been trying to get attention placed on that issue for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's not just the U.S. Coast Guard. It's rampant and deeply embedded in all of the military services. And it was our concerted opinion that it was divisive in nature. On the surface, it sounds good, but underneath, it's got its roots in Marxist ideology, which pits one group against another, one gender against another. And we do not think, based on our decades of service, that that's how you build a team. And so I'm glad to see that it's being rooted out of our services. Over.
Now, the Coast Guard is different than the other branches of the service. It comes under the Department of Homeland Security. Did that enable the president to take more directive action immediately?
I can't speak to that, Tony. I mean, obviously, the Coast Guard is under the Department of Homeland Security, and it's because we have a law enforcement mission that requires that. I was as shocked as anybody on Tuesday morning when I awoke and my phone had exploded with people sending me the message that my former friend and colleague, Admiral Fagan, had been relieved. I did not see that coming. I'm not surprised that they're going to let loose generals and admirals, but I was a little bit surprised to see that she was the first. And I feel her. I do. Over.
Let's talk about something that you and I discussed some time back on this program, back during the COVID pandemic. We saw many service members pushed out because they refused to get the jab, and that included the Coast Guard, and we were discussing that. You had real concerns about that. President Trump is looking to reinstate those who were expelled. I'm sure you're relieved to hear that, but how's that work? How is that going to work with these individuals whose reputations, their careers in many ways were tarnished, some ruined? How's that restored?
Well, that's a good question, sir. We've been talking about that a lot. The first thing you do is you acknowledge that we, the government, were wrong in forcing that mandate down upon them based on what we know now. And then you just apologize and you make it right to the best of your ability. For those who got dismissed with 16, 17, 18, sometimes 19 years of service, they need to be allowed to come back on our active duty and to get the benefits that they work so hard to earn. And I hope that happens. And with that, you'll start to build you'll build confidence again that the leaders, at least the new leaders and Commander-in-Chief, is willing to take a hard look at what happened, why it happened, and make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again.
I think that last statement is so important, that we acknowledge what happened was wrong, but how do we put safeguards in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again?
Well, the first thing I think we need to do is this team I've been working with has developed a draft executive order that we hope to get into the president's office for signature. We call it the COMCAT. It's create a commission to study the COVID and the anthrax policies, how they rolled those out, what was done right, what was done wrong, pull it all out into the report, capture that information, and then codify it and make sure that we don't do it again. And to the extent that some people may have broken the law or breached policies, hold them accountable. Not a witch hunt, but it's just if you want to restore trust in the military services, because this is one policy that affected all of them. We owe it to them. We have a duty of care to do just that. Let's analyze it, recognize what we did wrong, acknowledge it, and ask forgiveness and move on.
I think that is so important, and I've had this discussion with those in the healthcare industry, FDA and others, where the policies that they pushed through, they now recognize were wrong, admitted it, but unless we put new processes in place going forward, we're going to repeat the same mistakes again. Somebody will. I mean, it might not be the same people, but there's going to be another challenge somewhere down the road, and it's best if we have documented and made the necessary changes to ensure that these people that serve this country are not harmed again.
Right. Yes, sir. So to the extent that you can help us with this effort, if you just remember this word, we got a draft executive order. It's titled COMCAP. And if you can talk people into at least taking that thing out and looking at it, we would be grateful, sir.
We will do that, Admiral. Admiral, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Likewise, my friend. God bless.